Good morning, everyone. Tuesday morning, July 7th, talking to you from the studios at WJOB. This is Jim Wieser and the Wieser Podcast. Welcome. Going to do something this morning. Fortunate enough to have a guest with me who I'll introduce here in a second. When I spoke to you last, I indicated that it was my belief, and probably just because of my background, having been so involved in the election process for so many years here in Lake County and statewide and a little bit nationally, that I wanted to focus as much as I could over the course of the next 4 months prior to the midterm on elections, because I think they're so critical. They're the foundation of our democracy. And I thought a great way to kick it off would be to have someone here who actually knows about elections. And I don't just mean generally speaking, I mean someone who knows the day-to-day operations and functions of elections, knows the timetables, knows when candidates have to file, knows when they have to withdraw, knows when ballots have to start getting printed, knows all that stuff that can help guide us through the election, the fundamentals and the procedure of the election process. She knows more about elections than, and I say this in all honesty, she knows more about elections than anybody else in the state of Indiana. I was fortunate enough to be the election board attorney for many years and worked with my guest, Michelle, for that entire time. And I can't tell you how many times we'd be working on something in her office, and a call would come in from the Indiana Election Commission. And these are the folks that run the statewide election. So they're the bosses. And they'd be calling Michelle asking her, hey, we're not sure about this. Can you tell us, is this the way to do it? I mean, that's the respect that she has statewide. So what I'd like to do right now is introduce to you my guest, Michelle Fajman, who is our election director and has been for, I won't say how long, because she doesn't.
37.
Oh, she's just giving away her age. She doesn't mean 37 years. So anyway, and Michelle, we talked the other evening about how we ought to approach this. And she just knows this stuff backwards and forwards, but it's really, really important information for all of you. And for anybody that wants to get involved in the process and wants to make sure they can at least vote in the process, because every legislative session, there's new laws proposed, there's new laws that are passed. We've got through a primary now. We're getting ready for a ballot. There's been there's potentially people that have been nominated in between because there's maybe vacancies on the ballot or someone withdrew or whatever. But can you just start out by letting the folks know from this point forward, what are you going to be doing?
It's funny because people always ask when I tell them what I do for a living, they're like, oh, you got the best job. You only work 2 days a year. And it's like, yeah, no, it doesn't work that way. So here over the summertime, as Jim stated, the primary's over. All the poll workers should be paid by now. So if you were a poll worker and you haven't got your check, give us a call and we'll make sure we look into that. All the independents, so people that are not Democrat or Republican but want to be on the ballot can run as an independent. And in those cases, they have to get signatures, petition with signatures on it. All those have been submitted. We are still working on one for a Secretary of State candidate, which is quite lengthy. And we have until about the 15th to finish that. We'll be done way before then. But we also had early ballot vacancies, and that's where candidates did not run in either the primary election under the Democrat or Republican ticket. And the county chairman can fill those vacancies. So sometimes they have a caucus to do that, and sometimes the power is given to them to fill it. And so all those names had to be submitted by the 6th. Couple days ago at noon, yesterday at noon. So those names are in. School board candidates have already completed their filings along with their signatures. So those are complete. We now move into the section where people can challenge the candidates. So if you feel like their qualifications do not meet what the statutory requirements are, they can challenge their candidacy. And the election board will review those and determine if the person should be on the ballot or not on the ballot. There's still time for the judges of the Supreme Court and Court of Appeals. They need to let the state know if they're seeking retention. So that period is still open. The period is still open for a lot of our school boards. School corporations are going to need to do referendums for their funding. Senate Bill 1 really hurt a lot of communities. And you're going to see more and more school corporations coming to the voters asking for assistance in funding. So I would almost expect almost every school corporation this year to be on the ballot for those kind of questions. And in some cases, they'll have 2 questions on the ballot. So that period is still open. And there's also still the period, whereas if you were on the ballot in the primary or you got appointed, there's still a period where you can voluntarily withdraw to get off for any reason. And that goes until July 13th. After that, the parties can then, again, fill that spot if they need to. So we don't know who all the players are yet. In the primary, we had 777 candidates, which was huge, which very exciting. A lot of people were wanting to get involved. And we'll have a lot here for the general, too. So we're still working on who the final list will be. And then once we get to that point, it is fast and furious with doing public tests where we're testing the voting system to make sure that it's accurate and everything's programmed. We'll start with early voting. We're already accepting absentee ballot applications. We're going to be in the process of looking for poll workers. Each party, we fill about 1,700 poll workers for Election Day. So if you're wanting to be involved, reach out to the political parties and say, hey, I'd like to be an inspector, judge, clerk, counter, travel board, any of the above, early voting, voting technician. This primary was about the worst I've ever seen for having enough workers. We struggled, both parties struggled on finding workers for the primary.
This is something that is concerning. It should concern everybody, but it certainly concerns myself, and I know others. As Michelle said, this was the toughest time they've ever had filling polling places. If you could, Michelle, can you just explain how many people are at a polling place, early voting or regular or Election Day voting? How many people are there, how they're appointed, and what their functions are?
Sure. We hire approximately 2,000 people to help us run Election Day at the polls. We have a little bit over 350 precincts, and at those individual precincts, there are 5 workers there. The inspector, who serves as like the inspector of the location. They arrange for pickup of the supplies. They're dropping off the equipment afterwards, and they serve as like the supervisor. That position makes $210, and each of the poll workers can earn $30 for a training session, which we have now put online, so it's very convenient. You can sit at privacy of your own home and watch some videos and answer a couple questions and take the test. Judges are serving at the voting machine. They are activating the voting machine for the voters, assisting them when needed. Sometimes they'll be checking IDs and pretty much just assisting on the voting machines. The clerks are running the iPads. So when a voter comes in and submits their voter identification, which is usually a driver's license, they are looking at it to make sure it meets the criteria. They are scanning it into an iPad system, which finds the voter. In a primary, the voter is to declare their party affiliation. The general, they do not. And then they confirm their address and they sign. A receipt comes out and they give that receipt to the judge. Judge takes them to the voting machine. So the judges and the clerks both make $145 and then again can earn the $30 for the training. You must be 18 years of age and a registered voter, or you can be 16 or 17 years old and take part in our student poll worker initiative. And so with that, you have to have your parents' permission, your principal's permission. You have to have a 3.0 on a 4.0 scale. You can be homeschooled. And with that, we train you and you can earn same amount of money as a regular poll worker, as anybody else. Looks great on your college resume. And we're hoping that it becomes a lifelong commitment to their civic community to make sure they're always casting a vote. So that's what they do at the polls.
Yeah, and thank you. And what a great point, because that is necessarily a local initiative. We implement it, but that's state law.
Yes.
That's state law. And I give the state kudos and credit for that, because it's really, really worked out well. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And then we have early voting, which takes place 28 days before the election. We're open. We have 11 locations. We are the biggest and the best in the state. And at each of those locations, they're early voting workers. So they're all equal in position. And we'll have 2 Democrats and 2 Republicans there. We're usually open for 8 hours a day. There's 2 Saturdays we're open. On Thursday nights, we're open till 7 p.m. And they're facilitating the voters just as if it was election day. This is a way for voters to cast their vote early in the event they're going to be out of town, working. Maybe you're having a medical procedure done and not going to be available to go on election day. You can cast your vote early. And our numbers there have grown. It's a very safe and efficient way to cast your vote. We also have voting by mail, which will have people in the office that are reviewing signatures. We have voting machine technicians that are helping us program and get the public tests ready. We have about 40 of them. And then we'll have counters on election day that are reviewing the absentee ballots, looking at signature reviews, and scanners on election day that are scanning the ballots.
Hey, Michelle, I was just listening to you. You talked about early voting, and that's been something, and I know Michelle is proud, and I know I'm proud of the fact that the early voting initiative began in Lake County,
yes,
in 2008 as a result of a court decision, and has spread. I don't want to say like wildfire, but it's spread throughout the whole state. And it's bipartisan. It isn't. This isn't a Republican initiative or a Democratic initiative. It was a people's initiative. And do you have any? I don't know if you have any information that would indicate. I assume you do, since you're smiling and you pulled out a sheet of paper. That gives me a hint, I guess. Kind of let the folks know what, if you can, what's the percentage, or how would you project or predict the percentage would be in November of early voting versus election day voting?
So early voting is going to be comprised of anything before election day. So that's going to be your mail, your in-person early voting at one of our satellite locations. It's travel board, which a lot of voters don't know about. And that's where if a voter is confined to a location, maybe a nursing home, maybe their own home, we actually take a voting machine to them with a bipartisan board and vote them there. So that way they're casting a vote just like anybody else on election day. And so we take those to nursing homes. We take them to hospitals. We take them to individual locations. And so a lot of people don't know about that, but that's something we do. Now, if we look back to the 2022 general election, so equal cycle, we had almost 38,000 people vote just at our early voting locations, not including the mail. That was just at the early voting locations. For the mail, we mailed out a little over 10,000 of them, and 8,500 about came back. So, had a much bigger turnout. It was 36.92% compared to our primary of 16%, which voters, that's really pitiful. I mean, when only 16% of the registered voters are coming out, we must do better when we're deciding who our representation is going to be.
No doubt about that. And those numbers, I think I can safely say the early voting numbers have just increased almost exponentially over the time since 2008, when I think, what were the voting places at that time? The clerk's offices, right? In the three courthouses, remote courthouses, and then the one at the government center.
Yes.
I mean, that it's remarkable, folks. If you give people the opportunity, if you make it convenient for them to vote, they will vote. And we try to get the word out as much as we possibly can. So go ahead. We were talking about, going back to what you were talking about before, about what the process is and the things that your office is getting ready and prepared to do now.
So with that 37,000 we talked about, that's the third highest year that we've had in early voting. So highest, I think, was probably the general of 24, where we had almost 89,000 people cast early votes. So the numbers, and when we go back to the first year of the 2008 general, 24,000. So we continue to see the trend of where more and more people are casting at the early voting locations. And that's because when you vote by mail and in other ways, there's a couple pitfalls that people don't always know about. One of the pitfalls was one of the laws we talked about last time I was on with you, which is a new law that if you don't date your ballot, it is rejected. Flat out rejected. Now, out of those, we had in this primary, and again, it was only 16%, so this number is not going to seem really high, but when you put it into percentage-wise, this is going to triple, quadruple, for the general. We had 28 ballots that came back with no date or incorrect date. Some people would put down like the day of election. Some people were putting no dates. Some people were putting their date of birth. Some people were putting a couple days off. And then they were looking at the postmark date and saying, oh, they couldn't have signed it on this date if the postmark says this. So they were really looking at these. And out of those 28, 4 people actually came into our office, got a certificate, and went back to their polling places. So the rest of them pretty much were disenfranchised. There was no other way to cure it if you don't come to the government center to fix this. We've seen the numbers grow higher on signature discrepancies where they're looking at your signatures and this J doesn't look like that J and so forth, and getting a little bit more scrutiny. When those things happen, you get an extra shot. We'll send you out an affidavit, you sign it, you return it to us, and then the board will determine to count it. So often people think, oh, the election's over with. I'm not going to return it. It's over with. It ain't over. We don't certify until days after the election. We go through all the provisionals. And since, 1992, we've had over 94 races. Now we're up to 95, I believe, that have been decided by less than 17 votes. So when they challenge you on your signature and you see races that have had ties, get those back into us. Don't let someone take away your right to vote. Make sure you get those in. And then the other thing is snail mail. It's our U.S. postal system. It's not as fast as it used to be. I believe we had 116 ballots that came back late. Some of them as little as one day. We went all the way up into about the 12th after the election. 116. Of those, only 16 went out of this county. Only 3 went out of state. We had a ballot that was postmarked in Whiting and took 11 days to get to us.
My God.
I think I could walk faster than that. We had others. One took 30 days to get to us. I looked at the postmark. I looked at when the voter signed it. I looked at the postmarked, and then I looked at when we received it. 30 days. Come on. Really?
So following up on that, the law in Indiana, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that the ballot is valid as long as it was postmarked prior to or on the date of the election. Is that correct?
No.
Okay, that's what I want to clear up.
No. In Indiana, your ballot must be received by 6 p.m. on election day. And we take every effort. We're in constant contact with our local post office. We are there 30 minutes before, waiting. We give ourselves enough time to get back to the government center and file stamp them in and go. There'll be a lot of times people are knocking on our doors and coming in and dropping them off. You can hand deliver them, but we have to have them by 6 p.m. So that postmark does nothing for you except for allowing me to kind of track and kind of have conversations with our post office on why did some of these take so long to get to us. But we have to have them by 6 p.m. on election day in order to be counted.
Okay. So if I'm a serviceman, or servicewoman serving overseas and wherever I'm serving, does their ballot have to receive by 6 p.m. on election day?
Now, our servicemen get a little bit.
That's what I want.
Get a little bit of grace. They are allowed to vote electronically via the internet.
Right.
So we will email their ballot to them. They can email it back to us, and then a bipartisan team transfers it to the card so it can be scanned. But they can return their ballot all the way up until the point in time when we're counting provisionals.
And when is that, so folks know?
So it's 10 days after the election.
Right. So anything else in terms of the process itself that folks ought to be aware of?
So make your plan early. How do you plan to vote? And then initiate it. So if you're going to be voting by mail and you know that, go ahead and submit your application now. We'll get you in. We make sure everything's done on it. Everything's correct. And that way, September 19th is when we start mailing ballots.
Okay.
And then once you get it, vote it, return it, get it back sealed in the room, and have it sitting there waiting for election day. Don't procrastinate. And for our college kids that are going off to college and you're home, fill out an absentee. You're going to be down at school and might not get a chance to come back up here for election day. Fill out your absentee, have it sent to your school, and then cast it and return it. And again, know the other options. If you can't make it on election day, vote early.
Yeah, that's really important. I'm glad you mentioned that about the college kids.
Yeah.
We've talked about the SAVE Act before. If you could just take a couple of these sections of what would be required. Let's just take an example because it's one that's so obvious. I have to register for the first time, or I have to register because my registration lapsed, whatever the case might be, and I am a married female. What do I now have to do? And I was previously registered, and I was registered under my maiden name.
You are now going to have to show a copy of your birth certificate, and then you're also probably going to have to show a copy of your marriage license showing that this is why your name changed, this is who you were, and this is who you are now, even though you're the same person. You're going to have to show that. People don't realize. I mean, for some of us, it's very easy to go to the BMV and go get, a copy and go get registered and do some of this stuff, and maybe to get to your health department. But a lot of the health departments have closed down. Some of them, you might have to go a longer distance. If you used to live in the South, some of your places may have washed away in New Orleans. Some of you may have had home births and trying to get copies of these things. It's not as easy as everyone thinks. And I'll see it on social media. It's not that hard to get mine. Well, yeah, it's not that hard to get mine either, but it is for other people. And we need to think of every single person out there, not just the few. And so that's going to make it difficult. You will no longer be able to register online. It's going to be in person, where you're going to register in person. So all of our convenience, where we've become a society of everything is very fast and online and everything else, not anymore. Come into the office, come drive down there when you're working an 8-hour day or a 12-hour day and trying to get to the election board office to register in person. A lot more difficult. Think of our guys out in the mills. They're working 12-hour shifts a day. We're not open on the weekends. It's going to be a lot more difficult.
Yeah, it truly is. And like Michelle says, for some people, I agree. People that have the means and the wherewithal, it might be a minor inconvenience, but if you take an individual who's from an entirely different state, and someone coming from Mississippi or Louisiana or Alabama or wherever, and now wants to register in Indiana, and it's a female, and her information on her registration in the state she was in is going to be completely different, and they have to go through all the hoops. The estimated cost, and there's been studies done on this, the estimated cost for a person to fully comply with the provisions of the SAVE Act, if they're required to do so, is over $200 to get copies of birth certificates, copies of passports, copies of whatever documentation that they may need, and the time and the effort to get that done.
We don't have the public transportation here in Lake County either. You live all the way up in Hammond or Whiting. They no longer have the Hammond Health Department. You are coming out to the county.
That's right.
So to try to get a bus and transfer and to just get out to the county complex before it closes and then make sure you have enough of the documents that you need so you're not having to go back and forth, and then the cost associated with it. It's not a simple procedure. The other thing I want to state is when you are doing, we all have two different signatures. Think about it when you go to the grocery store and you sign the keypad for your credit card, right? It's just a scribble. When you sign things, permission slips, whatever, it's just a scribble. And then when you sign like your taxes or an official document, you get that nice, neat signature, right? Those are the things we're looking at. When we look at signatures, we're looking at your application, how did you sign it, and your ballot. Be consistent. Take the time. A lot of people think that's just a paper. It's just an application. I'm going to scribble it in there, do the little swirl, and then my ballot comes and it's nice and fine. We're looking at those things. And in some of the last elections, from a primary to a general, and the general of 24 and 2022, we were 24, we were almost at 200. 2022, it was over 200 that they challenged based off signatures compared to 19 in a primary. They're looking at them. Be consistent with your signature. And the funny thing is one year we had a gentleman who challenged himself. It was the first year when we were talking about like really seeing signatures. And he went to the polling place and he's like, that's not my signature. And he challenged himself. And when I got this, I was like, who challenges themselves? And he came in and we pulled up his record. And I said, well, here's when you registered when you were 18. And he was now much older. And he looked at the original document. He goes, yeah, that was me. He's like, I totally forgot all about that one. But he's like, here's my documentation. His ballot counted, of course, but he had to drive all the way out to the county to come in and present that. And it ended up being his signature. So just kind of think about being consistent on there. Also, something new this year, when you go to the polls on election day, straight party voting, you can hit the straight party and it's going to select all the candidates of your political party, except for it's not going to answer public questions. It's not going to answer any of the school boards,
Right.
And it won't answer any of the offices where it's a vote for more than one. So your township races, so township board races. So when you go to vote, if you do straight party, remember, don't forget the people farther on down the ballot that's not going to count for. New this year is school board candidates can also declare their party affiliation. So you're going to see that new where you may not have seen it in the past. Candidates can declare as Democrat or Republican, nonpartisan, no office, whatever the case may be, but that's going to be different for you. And then don't forget, you're going to have the VVPATs, voter verified paper audit trail, inside the voting machine that prints out your selections for you to take one last look at before casting your vote. Now, you don't have to do straight party either. You can go through and individually select the candidates of your choice. Completely fine. Pay close attention because there are some races that are a vote for 2, 3, and so forth. So just make sure you're looking at those. Again, you don't have to vote for any race you don't want to. If you only want to vote for 1 out of 3, completely fine. Or you can do straight party and then cancel someone out. You just push the button again, cancel them out, make another selection. So there's options on the voting machine. Voting machines are all handicap accessible. If you go in and you are visually impaired, we do have headphones at every single polling place where you can put the headphones on and the ballot will read to you.
Yep.
There's magnifiers built into the units and so forth. So they're all handicap accessible. So don't let that stop you on going to a polling place also.
See, this is all incredibly important information. It truly is. And that's why we wanted to start early. We don't want, not that we wouldn't be, but Michelle and I sitting here talking to you in the second week of October saying, oh, by the way, this is this, this is this, this is this. And it's too late. Registration is already closed. Yet, there's a lot of things they're done. The ballot's already printed. Now's the time it really is the time to think about it.
Last day to register to vote. Since you said that, October 5th.
Okay. October 5th is the last day to register to vote. So please remember that. It's so important. I can't tell you how I've seen in the years. I think I can't begin to tell you, but when did the election board was formed in about 94 or 5 in Lake County?
93.
93. Okay. I knew it was right around there. And Michelle's been there since day one. She was 14 when she started. I think I came on board as the attorney shortly thereafter, as I can recall. Maybe that's where I'm coming up with the 95 figure. And it's always been that board's been run in a bipartisan / nonpartisan / open and transparent manner. What concerns me is the paucity of workers, the challenge to get workers now out, whether it's remote for early voting, whether it's election day voting, whether it's going out to the to senior citizen homes or facilities, assisted living facilities to get people to vote. It's just challenging because the attitudes have changed, not as strong as they used to be. And folks, these people are just doing, they're going over and above doing their civic duty. They believe in our system of government and they believe in our system of elections. So please, folks, treat them with respect. Mm-hmm. Be kind to them, treat them, greet them. They're kind. I've been to more polling places than I care to ever be in, and they're always helpful. They're always friendly. Just remember, it doesn't make any difference. When they're there, yeah, you may be an appointed Republican judge, you may be an appointed Democratic clerk, but you're a member of the election board and the election system, and that's what they're doing, and that's how they're doing it. I want to thank Michelle, as always, for knowing everything and anything about elections. She knows other stuff too, but you folks don't need to hear that. I really appreciate it. We're going to have Michelle back several times before the election is over. Look forward to talking to you all again next week. Thank our producer, Adriana, for her usual stellar job. And hope you all have a good day and a good rest of the week. Take care.